Good morning. It is 10:30 a.m. It is Sunday, and that means it is time for Sunday Club, a weekly stream where every week we live stream some Ruby on Rails code and we work on a Ruby on Rails app together. And that app is an app where we allow users to turn up and they give us details of their YouTube channel or their Twitch channel. And they give us the channel ID, and we then go off, retrieve all the videos for that channel, and then we kind of make a little mini website for that channel. That's the app that we're working on together. And if you have been following along with the streams, you'll know that we, a couple episodes ago, did a kind of planning session around, we had gone to retrieve the videos from the third-party service like YouTube. And we had kind of planned to take a look at how we, after we've retrieved them, we then keep those two systems in sync. So all the videos on YouTube and then all the videos on our app. Now, around Christmas time, the team behind Basecamp and kind of Rails itself kind of released Hotwire, these kind of new libraries, frameworks, gems, whatever stuff for different ways to interact with kind of different ways to kind of handle your front end logic and have that speak to the server. So we have taken a little mini diversion over the last few weeks from the planning that we had done previously to dive into that kind of Hotwire library that was released. And so last week we took a look at Turbo, and Hotwire was broken down into kind of these two at the moment main segments, which is Stimulus, which is kind of JavaScript framework to help you kind of build these kind of stimulus controllers and do more of your logic, your front end logic there, rather than relying on a framework like React or something like that. And then the other half of it is Turbo. And that's what we dove into. So we looked at Turbo last week, which is the replacement for Turbo Links. And we took a look at a specific feature called Turbo Frames. And what I said we would do is we would kind of finish our diversion this week by taking a look at Turbo Streams. This is all new to me. I haven't used these things at all. So last week was a kind of voyage into the unknown for all of us. And we're going to take a look at Turbo Streams this week. So I'm super excited. A couple of bits of follow-up. Thank you to everyone who reached out. Got comments around Webpack and asset pipeline from people reaching out. So definitely people interested in that. I know there was conversation in the chat last week around that. I didn't really, hadn't really formulated any thoughts around that particularly, but I think it's an area we might want to come back and dive into, especially because of the ambiguity it can create for learners. So I think it might be worth having maybe a whole stream on that, how we've set it up in the Sunday Club app. What else were people talking about? Thank you to Justin, who reached out on Twitter. A couple of things. We're using controller specs in this code base, whereas RSpec does recommend that new code bases move to request specs because a couple of other features within controller specs have been deprecated, which is fair enough. So again, if you're a learner and you're following along with these week to week, then these are just kind of casual streams where we're looking at things from different approaches rather than tutorials. This is how you should do it or anything like that. It's definitely more casual. And Justin also is coding along kind of a similar app at the same time. So I think he's doing better versions and being more diligent than I can do during the streams. So there's a couple of issues that he found in the code that we had to go and retrieve the videos. I think maybe not, the descriptions aren't coming through. So we'll dive back into that at another time. So like I said, planning a couple of episodes ago, a couple of streams ago, go take a look at that if you're interested. We've diverted from our planning a little bit to take a look at Hotwire. So we took a look at Turbo Frames last week, and we're going to take a look at Turbo Streams this week. So let's get into it a little bit. Let's jump over to take a look at the code itself. This is Sunday Club, but let's just dive straight into Turbo where we were last week. Now we are picking up exactly where we were from last week. I didn't get a chance during the week to look at anything. I didn't read about Turbo Streams in any way. So this is literally all of us watching along with this together. We are in it together. I have no idea if this is going to work, but we'll take a look at what we built and then we'll see what we were going to be able to do with it. I remember at the end of last episode suggesting what we could do. So let's take a look at what we built. Again, we don't really have a user interface design, as you can see on the screen. Everything's just kind of spat out as it is. So we have our models. If you haven't been following along, we have a channel. A channel has many videos. And this is the channel's show view in our kind of administrative area, the control panel. And each video then has an edit button, which you can then click. And what was happening previously to last week is you would click edit and you would be redirected to the edit view. And we wired up turbo frames around this kind of partial that's powering this UI. And when we click edit, instead of being taken to another view, instead of being taken to another page, Turbo Frames is swapping out that frame on the page, and actually it's going to get the edit page, bringing back the response, parsing out only the bits that we need, and swapping out that part of the page. And if I click cancel, it'll do the same thing. And it also handles form responses. So if we take test out of here and hit update video, it's making that request to the server, processing the response, but only updating the page on the frame that it cares about. And so that it works. It, as described, as advertised, it worked, which was amazing. That covers up decompose with turbo frame. So that was kind of section 3 of the turbo handbook, as they call it. So this is everything we covered last week, going through. So what I think we want to do is take a look at the next page, which is Come Live with Turbo Streams. And where I'm concerned about trying this is that I'm not sure if we're going to have to dive into any kind of infrastructure stuff to get this running locally. So like, does it need Redis, for example? Can it just work in the database we already have? I have no idea what's about to happen here. So we're going to read along together. And before I read this, the idea that we had here is that what we could do is do something really quick, like give each video like a like count or something like that. Just basically something that was easy to update. Or maybe we could just add a little batch that just says updated or something if maybe the update at that timestamp doesn't match. And we just want something to appear on the screen independently of the user having to do anything. So we want to have some event broadcast from the model that go through the Turbo Streams architecture and then cause an action on the UI. That's, I think, the dream. I think that's what Turbo Streams is doing. So that's what we're going to do. I don't think the actual function matters, and we can just write some dummy code there. Like if it's a like count, fine. If it's just, recently updated or something like that. It does really neatly tie into the planning. This has just occurred to me. We did have, maybe it occurred to me last week as well. We did have in our planning the idea that we would need to process when something had happened on YouTube. So like a video had been updated or that someone had changed the description. We could actually put a notification in the UI here. We could get that webhook back from YouTube, process it, trigger an action, trigger something from the model, and then have something in here say, hey, there's a new version of this available on YouTube or something like that. That could be a cool end result of all of this. All right, let's dive into Turbo Streams. Turbo Streams deliver page changes as fragments of HTML wrapped in self-executing Turbo Stream elements. Self-executing Turbo Stream elements. Okay. Each stream element specifies an action together with a target ID to declare what should happen to the HTML inside it. Action, okay. These elements are delivered by the server over a WebSocket, SSE, or other transport to bring SSE server-side something? Server-side execution? Where's SSE? Server-side event. Okay, cool. These elements are delivered by the web server over a WebSocket, server-side event, or other transport to bring the application alive with updates made by other users or processes. A new email arriving in your inbox is a great example. Stream messages and actions. A Turbo Streams message is a fragment of HTML consisting of Turbo Stream elements. The stream message below demonstrates 5 possible stream actions. The 5 possible, so not just 5 possible. There are only 5 possible stream actions. The actions are append, This will be appended. Prepend, this will be prepended. Replace, this will be replace. Update. Okay. The contents of this template will replace the contents of the element with the ID unread count. Okay. Someone has a different target. Oh, they all have different targets. Someone's messages. This is message 1. Okay, so instead of this one's just like maybe putting a badge on something, you just want to prepend it to the group. This one is nope, actually swap out the message itself. So maybe it's been edited. The unread count is update. Okay, so if we're going to do the light count, this might be the one that we do. I'm a bit. What's the difference between replace and update then? The contents of this template will replace the contents of the element with ID unread count. Right, okay, so whereas this one will... This one has target message 1 and ID message 1 in it. That one will replace the whole element and this one would just do the content, I guess. Okay. And then remove. Okay, cool. Note that every TurboStream element must wrap its included HTML inside a template element. Apart from remove, obviously, because remove, there's nothing to replace it with. So you get TurboStream, then you get templates. This is in the response, the thing that you send to the browser. Okay. Well, the thing that you send to the client, I guess. Note that every TurboStream element must be... You can render any number of stream elements in a single stream message from a WebSocket, SSE, or in response to a form submission. Okay. Streaming from HTTP responses. Turbo knows how to automatically load stream elements when they arrive in response to form submissions with a MIME type of text VND, TurboStream HTML. Turbo itself adds this type to the accept header to let the server know that these responses are possible. It's therefore easily possible to tailor your server responses to deal with both turbo streams and regular redirects, or other responses for clients that don't want the stream, such as native applications. In a Rails controller, this would look like this. Okay, so there is a specifically built-in format, turbostream.remove. Okay, so I'm assuming this is all coming because we've got the gem installed. So we've got this new format that the controller will respond to, TurboStream. That's then able to render TurboStream. Again, I'm assuming we're getting all this for free. Don't know if we have to do anything there. Then TurboStream.remove. Again, I'm assuming that's not like a partial or anything. And then just message. Okay. So we haven't had to do like DOM ID message, or is message partial or anything like that? Okay, not sure about the details there, but we don't want to worry about that too much. Okay. How much of this do I need to do any setup for? Or can I just do this now? Like, is this working because I installed the gem last week, or do I have to do a bunch of infrastructure stuff? Okay, well because we could try this really quickly, because we could just say, well, remove something, and then we could just how do we trigger that part though? Okay, reusing server-side templates. Let's just keep going through the docs, because I've got too many questions to just smash into doing this like we would normally do. Okay, the key to Turbo Streams is the ability to reuse your existing server-side templates to perform live partial page changes. Yep, which is similar to the frame stuff we looked at, I think. Is my loopback thing going again? The HTML template used to render each message in a list of such. Okay, English. The HTML template used to render a message in a list of such on the first page load is the same template that'll be used to add one new message to the list dynamically later on. Okay, cool. This is at the essence of the HTML over the wire approach. You don't need to serialize the new message as JSON, receive it in JavaScript, render a client-side template. It's just the server-side template which we used. Okay, yes, that's in the spirit of this whole thing. That makes sense. Another example from how this would look in Rails. Okay, this is better. So we have message. This is similar to what we had last week. We had our DOM ID video. And then we've got our video content. Then we've got all the messages. Yep. And we had render partial collection messages. Okay, cool. Okay, so creates a new message and then render turbo stream. So how does it know that I mean, obviously it knows because of the MIME type, but how do we get it to bring this one back rather than this one? Turbo stream append, messages, partial. Yeah, how do we get here? Okay, maybe I'm missing something. When the form to create a new message submits to the messages controller create action, the very same partial template that was used to render the list of messages in messages controller index is used to render the turbo stream action. This will come across as a response that looks like this. Yep, okay, because it's going to append, do this. This message's message template partial can then also be used to re-render the message following an edit or an update action. Yep. Or to supply new messages created by other users. So, yeah, okay. So basically we're always going to use the same partial. All of that is all just saying we're always going to use the same partial. Oh, okay. Comments are arriving. Morning, Justin. How is it going? I'm just going to finish this paragraph. So being able to read the same templates. Yep. So just checking. This is all saying that it's the same idea. So Justin is up and around this morning. Where is the idea of hotwiring coming from? Is there something fundamental that's being changed that's allowing frameworks to be able to update? It says without JavaScript to the end. I don't think it's that it's without JavaScript. It's that because the JavaScript is the thing parsing the response back, I would guess. So we do still get the full response in the browser. I imagine it's the JavaScript that's just plucking out the section. No, I don't think there's anything fundamental that's being changed. A bunch of services, like I think GitHub had been doing this for a long time. And certainly the proliferation of WebSockets, so being able to keep that connection open between the client and the server is one of the biggest changes, but we're kind of on the other side of that now. And HTTP 2, as I understand it, is also a big deal there because you don't then have the cost and expense, the technical expense of having to redo the HTTP connection each time. You can basically, HTTP 2, you can get multiple connections, only having to do that like handshake process once. So having more, you used to get penal if you're using HTTP 1, then every time, like you always had to try and send as few assets over the wire as possible because each one involved a new HTTP stream. So performance reasons, it was trying to send as few of those as possible. If you're then delivering that over HTTP 2, that goes away because each one is then, the connection is only made once, and then new HTTP connections don't have that same upfront cost. So I'd imagine that's a big part of this as well. So you can keep the socket open and new HTTP connections are not as expensive. And I mean technically expensive, not financially. But I imagine all of this was possible previously, but just that expense was probably not making it worth it. And the other one I would imagine is the massive proliferation of front-end frameworks actively moving away from this process. So the concept of keeping the data separately in the front end and then making the calls back and forth as a different data type. You might not in any way have them as the same data structure. So you might have a backend that has an entirely different set of models to what you're then representing in the front end. And there was like a big shift to that, especially for React and other things like that. Early on, there was Angular and Backbone as well at that time when React was coming out as well. So essentially, like they all have huge benefits and huge trade-offs as well. So I'd imagine there are a bunch of people who would look at this and say, well, yeah, but like you're still having to make those callbacks every time. Like, why not hold more state in the browser so that you don't then have to have the performance cost of going back and forth every time, and you can leverage more of what the browser's doing. I'm hoping that made some sense. But I've worked on a bunch of kind of apps that have React sprinkled in. So you're kind of in a halfway house. And then apps that are then kind of moving more towards fully React and then ones that are fully reacted. I've worked with less just because I prefer to stay on the Rails side of things. So if you're in that kind of fully React or fully front end world, that tends to serve itself better if there is just an API endpoint to hit, because then trying to maintain the page structures of whatever you're doing around a full front end app, they're better off just calling probably better off just calling an API. So I think, I think if you're gonna being in that halfway house of just kind of sprinkling these things through, I would think this is a really good built-in way of not having to sprinkle it in. Whereas if you're already in that kind of, we're moving towards a full React front end with an API, this is a different direction entirely. So that seems like a valid way to go, just to keep going in that direction. Okay, so progressively enhance when necessary. It's good to start your interaction design without turbo streams, make the entire application work as it would if turbo streams were not available, lay them on as level up. This is what we were doing last week. We'd already built our functionality and then we turbo framed it. So this means you won't come to rely on the updates flows. Yep, that's all good. That we know why this. The same is especially true for WebSocket updates. Okay, on poor connections or if there are server issues, your WebSocket may well get disconnected. If the application is designed to work without it, it'll be more resilient. What about running JavaScript? So TurboStream consciously restricts the type of actions you can perform to just 5, which is what we looked at a second ago. If you want to trigger additional behavior, you should use stimulus controllers. This restriction allows TurboStreams to focus on the essential task of delivering HTML over the wire. Yeah, that makes sense. Most of the time you're only doing one of those 5 things, either shoving something in or taking something out. Seems to cover the bulk of what you're doing, especially because you could, I'm guessing these streams you can define how big the blocks are you're willing to send back out to replace. Like, it doesn't have to just be the number in the badge. Like, if it's quick enough, you could just swap out the entire section of the DOM. Integration with server-side frameworks. Of all the techniques included with Turbo, it's with Turbo Streams you'll see the biggest advantage from close integration with your backend framework. As part of the official Hotwire suite, we've created a reference implementation for what such an integration could look like in the Turbo Rails gem, which we installed last stream. This gem relies on both the built-in support for WebSockets and asynchronous rendering, both present in Rails through Action Cable and Active Job frameworks. Right, so we have Action Cable by definition of having Rails, but do we have to do anything else for that? Because we've done nothing for it. Using the broadcastable concern mixed into active record, you can trigger WebSocket updates directly from your domain model. Okay. And using the Turbo Streams tag builder, you can render Turbo Stream elements in inline controller responses or dedicated templates, invoking the 5 actions when associated rendering through the simple DSL. Is that what's making this stuff possible? I'm not going to click through and read it right now. I'm going to be really diligent and keep going with the docs. You can render Turbo Stream elements in inline controller responses, I think it might be, or dedicated templates. Turbo itself is completely backend agnostic though, so we encourage other frameworks, blah, blah, blah. That's all good. Alternatively, a straightforward way to integrate any backend application Turbo Streams for the Mercure protocol. Mercure defines a convenient way for... Okay, so I have just read all of that and everything kind of made sense. I'm not sure. Everything kind of made sense. I'm not 100% sure. Can we just do this then? So respond. We can put a format in our response from our server. But yeah, we really want to do this broadcastable part. Using the broadcastable concern mixed into active record, you can trigger WebSocket updates directly from your domain model. Let's click through and take a look. Turbo Streams can be broadcast directly from models that include this module. This is automatically done for active records. This makes it convenient to execute both synchronous and asynchronous updates and render directly from callbacks in models or from controllers or jobs that act on those models. Rendered directly from callbacks in models. Okay, that slightly blows my mind a little bit. Okay, let's keep going. And an example from Hey, hang on, let me bump this font size up. Oh, okay, it doesn't wrap. Can I turn wrapping on? No. Bump it down a little bit. This is an example from Hey, and the clearance is the model that drives the screener. Okay, here's say this is the clearance model, belongs to petitioner, belongs to examiner. After commit broadcast later, broadcast later, broadcast prepend later to examiner identity clearances. Which gives you some power to deny first time senders, petitioners. Oh man, they're explaining their entire. Oh, okay. Okay. Across access to their attention as the examiner. When a new clearance is created upon receipt of an email from a first time sender, that'll trigger. That's like such a specific example to give. Like, okay. That'll trigger the call to broadcast later, which in turn invokes broadcast prepend later too. So I'm assuming that prepend is broadcast prepend later too. So that is the one of the 5 actions. So broadcast comes from this broadcastable thing, which I'm assuming is just an event broadcaster that action cable magically knows how to listen to. Prepend is one of the actions that we're magically allowed to do. Later, I assume that we're putting this in a job of some sort. And then 2 tells us which element to prepend it to. I've inferred all of that because it doesn't say anything. That method enqueues okay, so it enqueues it, so I'm assuming that's the later part. A turbo streams action broadcast job. Okay, so you get a specific job, and we've already done our active job. Or the prepend, which will render the partial for clearance. It knows which by calling clearance to partial path, which in this case returns clearance is clearance. Okay, so this goes back to the thing we were doing last time. Does video, how does video know to call videos /_ video through the kind of naming convention? Send that to all users that have subscribed to updates using TurboStream from in a view. Okay, right. I think we're going to need to Google a tutorial here. I think we could probably battle our way through, but the fact that we should already have like in the handbook thing, it didn't tell us we had to subscribe to updates. But presumably, did I just miss that in here? Part of the frame stuff? No, okay. So if I do subscribe? No, okay. Let's Google Rails Turbo Streams tutorial. Let's go take a look and see what else I've got. So we've got a tutorial here on dev.to from either Jan or Jan, depending on how you pronounce that. Oh, okay, that's a tutorial in Go. Okay, so I was hoping to get more of a from scratch. Turbo streams. So that's the, I said I'd half watch some tutorials. So I think that it's in the Go Rails one for how to upgrade from TurboLinks to Hotwire and Turbo using device, using Hotwire. Can we just search for streams in here? Okay, maybe I'm totally missing real-time message logs with action cable. Okay, maybe I am naively missing something that we Okay, well, let's just crack on with what we've got then. I couldn't see anything easily viewable. So we've got broadcastable. Configures the model. Let's just cover this. 4 basic actions you can broadcast. As a rule, you should use underscore later versions of everything except for remove when broadcasting within a real-time path like a controller or a model. Since all those updates require a rendering step which can slow down execution. You don't need to do this for remove since only the DOM ID for the model is used. In addition to the 4 basic actions, you can also use broadcast render later or broadcast render later 2 to render a TurboStream template with multiple actions. Okay, this is definitely not as, for me, as pickup and playable as the frame stuff. Configures the model to broadcast update. So this is straight into the actual concern itself. What is all of this stuff? Broadcast 2, cool. So I kind of get all of the broadcast stuff. How do I subscribe? How do I set up the event listener to listen to them? Is that like an action cable thing? Because I haven't really used that much. Is that what the... So Rails, Turbo... are they listeners? So this is all from Turbo Link stuff. Yeah, I think I'm... Turbo listeners... I think potentially I'm missing a step here. So I think we can make our app, we can make our model broadcastable. So let's say we want to make our what have we got here? Videos. So let's just go and wire up some code and see what we can get going. Just because it feels better to be poking around in code than poking around in a browser. If you're kind of following along more for the nuts and bolts stuff of the app, this one is definitely probably less useful. This is mainly me being interested in Hotwire specifically. So I did mention at the start, this is a bit of a diversion from our kind of planned functionality, but this is probably something that I'll refer back to in terms of like how this stuff works. So can we just include that as a concern because it's built in? As a Rails to broadcast. Okay, so this is someone just setting it up. Broadcast 2. Okay, so it's in by default for active record, so I guess is what it said. So can we just mixed into active record? Cool, okay. So we can... That's the same place. Okay. Just gonna lift this thing so we could just do something like, I think after update is one. Broadcast prepend later to... Is examiner the class that was in? No, it's on... So can we just do the video itself? Clearances. New, hang on, let me just bump this font up again. Partial for clearance and host. Okay, so I'm assuming we can use self. So I'm basically saying like, hey, after I've been changed, do this thing. So let's just see if we get anything happening there. If this stuff is all built in. So we got server here, and then we had it was rake jobs work, I think, from last week. And then we want a console as well. Oh, actually, we can actually use our UI, can't we? Okay, cool. So we've got a worker here. So let's pop the worker up here in the top right-hand corner, which is not working, but let's pop that there. And then on the left-hand side, let's update one of the videos. So here. So this is... should get to that code, so we can then update this. Okay, so that's now failing. Perfect. So we want to see our errors. Then for video. Videos controller and update. Broadcast later. Oh. Broadcast prepend later to... Okay, I'm kind of just poking around in the dark a little bit here. Just to see what happens. What happens if we just take the later off for now? Just see if it'll work in real time. Just want to rule out it being the job worker coming back. Ah, yeah, great. Okay, so there was a change there. So missing template, partial videos underscore video. Missing template, partial video. Videos. Okay, that's super interesting. So this is happening in the update with the videos controller. It successfully. So is that because that's after the update has happened? So this is looking for the partial that it wants to send down the pipe. Okay, so will this take a path? So I'm assuming it's this. Like, will that take a path to this? So this is where I'd normally say that we're being not diligent by not following the docs, but I genuinely couldn't see anything that was guiding us through it in a more detailed way. So apologies if I've totally missed something. Yeah, I really feel like I have. So as the callback is failing, because it's no longer trying to do it asynchronously. Related to, but that should add it to. Let's do that again. Undefined method then for video. Where's the then coming from? Just going to really quickly Google that in case it's something obvious that I've not done. Da-da. I want specifically define then, which is a stupid thing to search for. Broadcast. No, okay, I think I'm screwing that up. Then for video. Oh, is it because it's a class rather than... Find method then for video. So do the callback. So what was in the original example that we were supposed to be doing? Examiner.identity. Don't know what that is because I don't know. Let's read this again. Let's module it automatically to make this convenient for both synchronous examples. So it's broadcast later, broadcast prima 2 later, examiner.identity. When a new clearance is created upon receipt of an email from first time sender, that's job for the prepend, which will render the partial for clearance. It knows which by calling clearance.to partial path, in which case, okay, which I'm guessing it gets from the class that's been called on. Send that to all users that have subscribed to updates using TurboStream from examiner view. Okay, I think I don't know enough about what's happening. Using TurboStream from in a view. Another stream name derived using a TurboStreams channel under the stream name derived from examiner identity clearances. So is that what we were then subscribing to by passing it that and that? Is that the key for how we should be subscribed to that stream? That partial rendering the target identified with the DOM ID clearances. Okay, so that's a DOM ID rather than a, okay. Oof. So I've done video and then it's like, so is that where it was looking for the... Okay, broadcast 2 to find a TurboStream template with multiple actions. Okay, so this is in no way as quickly doable as the frames work was. So for me anyway, because I think I'm just don't have enough of a handle on what should be happening. So let's give that another try. Yeah. So can we jump in here and see what we get to? Pull this over a little bit. Is that where we get the... Okay. Is that... Why can't I get to any of these? Kind of move through pry as I normally would. Sometimes. Okay. Yeah, okay. I'm wondering how much further down this rabbit hole I really want to go. I was kind of hoping this would be more plug and play. Whereas I think I need to go and actually prep for this one. All right. Yeah, because I think staring at me not understanding docs is not going to be useful for anyone. And I think I might want to have an idea of how those work. Yeah, this is kind of what I feared would happen last week, but it really was more plug and play on the That's useless. That's turbo link stuff. Yeah, so I think how to get that kind of pub sub relationship working. I haven't used Action Cable before. I wonder if that's something where I'd have a better understanding of what was going on here. Or maybe it's something really simple and I'm just totally missing it, which is more than doable. I get the theory of what we're trying to accomplish here, but not quite grabbing it. Okay, let's bail out of that. We've got a little bit more time, so let's go. Let's take a look at what we want to do with this behavior anyway. So everything else we've got still works. Can we commit all of this stuff in? That's from last week. That's stuff we can ignore. So that is in. That's our partial thing. And then this can all go. This is just from today. Yep. Okay. So, and this is in progress. Get partials working with turbo frames. Cool. Okay, so I think what we might do in that case is, I'm reluctant to say that I will endeavor to try and research this during the week and then come back with a better plan for how to do this. I just don't really want to read docs for another half an hour live on stream if I think we can move the app forward. But I will endeavor to try and find some time this week to play around with that and then come back. We can do a more specific stream lessons when I've had some time to work out what's going on. Maybe we do some Action Cable stuff first, if that is something that's useful to know. Yeah, okay. Okay, super useful. Right, in that case, let's turn our attention to what we were originally planning, which is the notion of having, let's bring up our type kind of planning stuff back up here. Oh, I just Googled it and I remembered how bad this is because I was drawing it live. Yeah, so let's bring this tab over here and remember how bad this drawing is of basically saying, right, okay, so we have apps, our app on this side, and we have a video that we have retrieved via the YouTube gem. So we go and get a bunch of our videos. We then store them on our side. We then have this state where we have a video in YouTube that is represented on our side, on the app side, sorry. And then a person can come along and make a change to video. They could update the description, for example, and they could change the title, change whatever they like, and that will change on YouTube, but not on the app side. We could then have the opposite happen where we could make updates like we've just been doing on the app side that are then not reflected in YouTube. So how would we handle this? And the other question was, let's say that we wanted to store those changes, but not have them reflected immediately. So we could then allow the admin to say, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I do want the latest version from YouTube, or I do want to have, a version from 2 versions ago of my video description. And so that's what these lines represent here. They're like stored versions of the descriptions. So that's kind of what we were looking at. And so what I think we can dive into instead of looking at our turbo streams, which we'll return back to another day, is YouTube channel webhook stuff. So hopefully we can take a look. Okay, so YouTube channel webhooks, YouTube API webhook. There we go. So this is what I had looked for previously. So subscribe to push notifications. So this is push notifications rather than webhooks. And so what is this notion? What is this? So this is basically when something happens on the YouTube side, we want to be told, and we need this blue line to be represented somehow. And that is here, a push notification. Sometimes you'll see them as webhooks, and it is a server-to-server publish-subscribe protocol for web access resources. You're basically saying, I want to know what's happening, and please tell me. And so that's the subscribe. Please tell me when these things happen. And then when the thing happens, the server publishes them and you get them. So you then listen for those events as they happen. So notifications are pushed out to subscribers via HTTP webhooks. I'm just going to bump this font size up, which is much more efficient than polling-based solutions. So with a polling-based solution, you would basically ask on a regular basis, hey, have you got any updates for me? Hey, have you got any updates for me? And instead of that, you can wait to have a webhook pushed to you, hey, I've got an update for you, which is way more efficient, as it says. With PubSub, that's the name, your server finds out about events in near real time without having to determine the optimal polling interval or repeatedly fetching data that hasn't changed. Your PubSub callback server receives Atom feed notifications when a channel does any of the following activity: uploads a video, updates a video's title, or updates a video's description. Perfect, that's what we're looking for. The following steps explain how to subscribe to notifications. Set up a callback server that can handle incoming Atom feed notifications. So that is on our side, on the app side. It's like you need to be ready to receive these notifications. So that's the callback server, kind of the listener. Use the Google Hub to subscribe to pubsubhub.appspot.com/subscribe. Okay. Set the mode to subscribe or set the mode to unsubscribe to cancel subscription. Set the callback URL to the URL that you set up in step 1. Set the topic URL to blah, blah, blah. Cool. Okay. Process notifications sent to your callback server. The notification format is shown below. Note that you can use the YT video ID element value to identify the newly added or updated video. You can use the YT channel ID to channel into video. Cool. So this is an example of the thing that we're going to get back is the new version of this video. Cool. You can subscribe to these via API, right? Like we want to subscribe to this automatically. We don't want to have to come to the hub every time. So I think I've looked at this before. Okay. How do we set up this without coming here? PubSub hubbub. Can we PubSub hubbub? Is there like a thing where we can PubSub hubbub from the code rather than having to go to the... There's a rack one. Subscribe diagnostic, subscribe, callback URL. Streaming notifications, okay. Webhooks, okay. Guys. Okay, I'm just looking through to see if there's like a YouTube. Is there anything in the YT Rails gem? So in here, they had a big long list. They had like a page that was just for the here we go, list of because the alternative if you can't subscribe is that you do have to go and poll. So you basically say, hey, you know, go and get me the latest. And you could look at a timestamp or a version number or something like that and just go and poll the API. Okay, well, I can Google around for that later. Let's see if we can get one up and running. So let's go and get our YouTube channel ID as we normally need to do. What we're going to do is just see if we can get a webhook coming back to us. And then if we can get the Turbo Stream stuff up and running, at least we'll have the webhook coming back so we know how to interact with it. So channels, so we've got channel ID here. And I've already forgotten what it said. Set the topic URL to this. Where the channel ID is the channel ID. Cool. What did it say? Set the mode to subscribe. Yep. Set the callback URL to the URL you set up in step 1. I think we can use an example of this. Yeah, I think we can use one of these. So here's one of these services where we can just set it up. Your unique URLs. Let's try this one. So this is webhook.site, and this will basically provide us a dummy, a dummy listening service, basically. So instead of having to bother set one up ourselves, this one is just a quick service that gives it for us. Verify type asynchronous. Okay, is that it? Not going to ask for any kind of verification stuff. Okay, nothing has happened. Oh, yep, something has happened. Googlebot has just come through and told us that something has happened. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you get requests to this service. Okay, so what do? Go and update one of the videos in the channel? And do that on the other screen. And we'll see if we get a new webhook in here. This is pretty exciting. So I'm just going to go grab a random video. Let's grab last week's video. And what we'll do is I remember to add some Twitter handles and stuff to the bottom of the description. And we'll just add those to the previous weeks. So that'll actually be something helpful. So let's do that. Okay, so then I'm going to hit save. And so now we have changes been made to one of our videos. So I don't know how instant this is likely to be, or if that subscribe even worked, because we didn't get any kind of, the fact that this went blank is not positive. Or we may have to actually go and write a poll to go and get this data. Okay, so if hit save a little while ago, we'll come back and check on that. I'm not sure this has worked. No, that's just me refreshing that view. Yeah, so we're not actually getting the actual webhooks back that the video content has changed. Okay. It's kind of weird. Oh, okay. Whoops. Submissions will result in a tier 4. In a browser, this looks like a no-op. Okay, so that is working. But we're not getting the actual offense back. So we're getting the first one coming through. And hitting the endpoint, but then the actual callback isn't firing. Achieve details about subscription. Okay, callback URL. Callback URL. Get info. Today is not my day. Nothing is firing today. Okay. That is not ideal. I was kind of hoping we could get that working if we couldn't get the streams working at least. Okay. That's not super helpful. And there's nothing in... I'm just checking in my channel now. There's nothing that I need to like enable for that or anything. Settings, default features. No, there doesn't seem to be any kind of like notifications that I can turn on that send out. Okay. Okay, that kind of made it seem it was going to be like a one and done. Just give that another... Nope. All right, okay. I will have a Google around off stream and try and find out a better way to do that. But we could... I mean, we could, I guess, discuss writing a polar, but then that's kind of the whole point, is that we want to delve into webhooks rather than a polar. Okay. Yeah, that's really frustrating. Let's run out for today. Well, I guess we could actually, what we could look into is Justin's issue of only having, I can see what he means here, like we're only got some of the description here. So Justin raised on Twitter that we're only getting a partial description coming through. We could just fix that quickly at the end of this stream, which I think is a bug in the importer, I would imagine. Yeah, we'll just do something quick that we might get a win out of. Ah, so frustrated. So frustrated after last week's rousing success with, let's face it, minimal work. Kind of hoping to carry that on, but that's the that's kind of the way it goes. That's how it goes. So I think it was in our importer here where we are looping through videos, and it's probably this, so we're only getting a partial. So if we look here, we have only got a couple lines of the description here, and what we really want is the whole thing. So I think the point that Justin was making, that it's YouTube channel.videos will only give you a partial one. You get the first couple, but we can go and get the actual video. And to get the whole one. Presumably the whole thing here. So is there like a retrieve or a find or... So that's... We can just do new and it will load when we ask for the field. Do something like this. And then this would be the get ID. And then we'd have video.description, so we can jump in here and just check if that works. So let's do a really rough one here. Just go and see if we can get something imported. So we can do import, test. Oh no, everything's broken. Oh no. Well, yes. Okay, so homepage. Oh wait, okay, that's now been affected by introducing turbo, I think. So can we go here? And then these will be this one. Oh, I think none of these work because of turbo. So I think we might have to change something. But I think that creates our importer, and then that should then have run in here. That has indeed created what we need. This only happens once every 30 seconds or so now, I think. this should have set our populate videos channel job. This should be listening for our job. This is all in previous streams, by the way. If you've made it this far through, this is all in previous streams. So we're just fixing a bug in something that we think. And we should get to a pry here, I think. Here we go. And and I didn't reset my I didn't reset my YouTube API key, which I have to do every week because I haven't done the work. It's all catching up to me. It's all my lack of diligence is catching up to me. All right, I'm just going to quickly reset our YouTube API and then we can rerun that job. Not going to let that defeat us. We're going to get something. We're going to get something done today. Something. This is. You can't win them all. Okay, I'm just going to go through real quick. I'm just resetting the YouTube API key, which I would not have to do if I had done my homework and fix this previously. So in here, kill that, and we can kill that. That's exiting. It's still exiting. And it's hung. Oh, I think that process may never be coming back. So we can jump out of this one. Rake. Jobs work. Bring the server back up as well. So I think this is going to try and run any existing jobs when it starts. Okay, I think I might have. I reckon that process might not have happened. Oh no, it's happening. Okay, great. Okay, so now if we do these manually, so we get that. Great, we get video, and then if we do video.description, okay, we get the whole thing. Great. Okay, so then we can swap this out here. It's gonna happen for all of them. It's just not my day. Okay, so failed 3 prior attempts. Request to YouTube API failed. I'm not sure why that failed because that should come back up. So then we can remove the pry and we can take video.description and we can pop that in here. Now, I'm going to come back to why we care about this in a minute, but let's just see if we can get... Come on, help me out. Okay, right, so then let's see if that will work. Hopefully because we got that description back and remove the prior, it should just load everything through. I'm not sure why that was still failing with the API failure because we have given it a correct key now. Hello, Nelson has come. The fundamental idea is hotwire partial updates through WebSockets. Yep, so fully on board with that. I think I just didn't understand how the action cable stuff was working. Okay, so we've got this worker firing up. Oh no, I think we've got multiple chat messages coming through. Cool. So the chat is maybe repeating some messages there. Okay. It doesn't seem to run the jobs on first run. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that on green, but hopefully we can kind of look at the code that we're running as well, which is that we have changed potentially, I actually don't actually know how the gem works, but we've potentially changed the behavior of this code now. Whereas when we were getting YouTube underscore channel dot videos dot each, what potentially we have changed is the making a single request. Nelson, I think that you're it's kind of stuck on repeat a little bit there. Your chat messages are coming through multiple times. So I think we just need to monitor that in the chat real quick. Bear with me. Still coming through. Okay, I am not 100% sure if this stream is still running because I've got some weird stuff coming up at my end here. There we go. Cool. Today is definitely not my day. It's definitely not my day. Cool. There we go. Okay, then I can go to here and work on the chat. Oh no, I think that Nelson's only popped those things in once, and I think it's probably my I think it's Streamlabs that's freaking out. Okay, sorry about that. They just keep appearing. Okay, so I just want to return to this, and then I'm going to wrap up for today because today has not gone amazingly well at all. But I want to just touch on one of the kind of behaviors that we may have changed. Then again, I don't know how we'd have to then check how the gem works. But originally we had YouTube underscore channel dot videos dot each, and so what could have been happening here is we would have gone to make one or multiple API requests to populate the videos collection. Maybe one, maybe if it was a large number of videos, would have gone to get one, and then one set, and then a kind of a paginated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many we needed until it got all of them. Because that only brings back a summary of the description, as Justin said, what we've now done is in here, just as some quick dummy code, we've said, right, or we want to go and get the video itself, and we then go and get the description. That might be then making an API call per video. Now, maybe that was happening here anyway. Maybe the YouTube channel .videos was also doing that to populate stuff. Again, you'd have to go and look. But when you're working with these gems that interact with third parties and you're iterating over things or anything like that, you want to be careful of changes of behavior there that you might not realize. So for example, let's say you were dealing with rate limiting, and so suddenly you went from one request that was bringing back lots of things to making an individual request for each of those things, but you've got a rate limit, or you're charged for API usage per request, something like that. That's something to really be aware of, where you, especially if you're using a gem, because a gem can obfuscate quite what's happening with the number of actual API calls. Whereas if you're writing the calls yourself, you kind of, or maybe you've got a wrapper in your code that does it. It's really easy to change your behavior, which works, especially with something like, as the YouTube API is probably going to be able to handle pretty significant volumes. If you were working on something that couldn't, then you'd maybe bump into it sooner, or that had stricter rate limiting. So with something like the YouTube API, this code may appear to work and just be fine, and you might not really care that you've changed the behavior under the hood, like we're only grabbing 20 videos here, and you might not even notice on a decent connection, and because this is server to server, a particular performance cost particularly. But if you're not aware of that behavior changing, and then you apply the same thought process to another API, you just want to be aware of anything where you're doing that. So you could look at the requests that were going to the API. So in the YouTube Google dashboard console, I think they call it, the APIs and services console, They have a really good like per request. You can see the number of requests. You can see loads of stuff about it, and there is a cap there. And then on some of the APIs, you get charged above it and stuff like that. So you would see changes there. You could actually like just look for them. You could try and rewrite the code without the gem and just make the request yourself and see what that did. Like there are loads of ways to do that. So, but just that idea of thinking through like, oh, this change might change the actual interaction with that third party via an API. That's really worth bearing in mind and kind of having that in your mind whenever you're changing that behavior, unless you're explicitly making each call individually, in which case you're really aware of it because you're calling like, you know, I'm going to make an HTTP request here and then I'm going to do it again, and you're aware of the costs of those. Hopefully that makes some sense. Hopefully that is a very tiny piece of value to be able to provide at the end of what has been not a very successful on the technical side stream. So I'll recap really quickly what we tried to take a look at and where we'll go from here. So we started off with taking a look at the Turbo Stream stuff, and the documentation there seems to make sense. We want to broadcast stuff from our model and then have that reflected back up to our view, but I'm not quite sure how we get our view ready for that, how we subscribe to the thing that it's listening to. I'm not sure how to set the listener up, and so then even just quickly trying to set the broadcaster up didn't seem particularly worth it because I wasn't able to quite get that working quickly to then go and dive into the listener. I think that's worth me doing more research off stream, so apologies, that's as usual, just kind of diving in. But hey, that's kind of what this stream is for. These aren't tutorials. We're just doing this together. We're just learning. It's cool. And then we went to take a look at the PubSub kind of webhook provider from YouTube, which did not seem to provide us. Maybe I just didn't wait long enough for those webhooks to come back. They have still not come back, so no, I don't think that's it. That didn't seem to work as expected for some reason. Again, I will try and maybe I'll take a look at that, but I'm not sure of the value of that one. And then we made a quick change to our import script, which would go and get the full description for each video, which I didn't even actually show it working. That then did work. So when we were able to actually go through to our channel, we were then able to see the full video descriptions, and again then talked about the ramifications of what that could actually mean. Just gonna see, I can't remember what channel that would be. Yeah, so the kind of ramifications there would be on the API connection, on the API requests that would be made there in that code. So we've changed that behavior of that code. So next week, we're going to try and return back to this. So take a look at those versioning we were going to do, and I'll see if I can get something working, like I said, on the webhook side, and hopefully we will have a bit more of a valuable stream. Thank you so much for sticking around, to anyone who's watched. Thank you for everyone who commented and reached out in the meantime as well. And I have made some notes based on stuff we want to talk about, which is the Webpack of asset pipeline stuff. And as usual, if you go to the repo, there is a discussions tab. So if there's anything you really want to mention, you can jump on Twitter or go there and we can kind of have a discussion around it there. And I hope you all have lovely weekends, and I will see you all next week, 10:30 UK time. Watch anytime on YouTube, obviously. And if I get a chance to do a homework edition in the meantime, then I will. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.